It is springtime here in Virginia, which means that my allergies are terrible. I can hardly see most of the time, and I'm sneezing and itchy, so it's great fun. It also means that our wedding season has officially started and we're about to get crazy busy. Before our wedding season gets too crazy, I wanted to do a quick video on nighttime photography and specifically nighttime portraits. This is something that a lot of people want to do. They even have the equipment to do it. They just don't know where to start or what to do with everything. It's actually pretty simple, and I'm going to go through first off why you would want to do it and then how to do it. What I am not going to do is show you how to work your flashes because there are so many. I have a couple of mine here. This is a flash with a trigger built in, so you can fire it with another flash just like this. It's a radio trigger, it's built in. This flash, you have to have an external trigger, so they work two different ways. This flash uses an optical trigger, which can be fired from your pop-up flash. There's other flashes that are called a slave flash, and they'll just flash when they see another flash. So there's so many different ways to use your flashes and so many different kinds that I'm not going to cover every single kind of flash. So this is assuming you already have flashes and you know how to set them to manual flash mode. So I'm just going to show you how to set them up, where to put them, things like that. So first is, why would you ever want to take pictures at night anyway? The reason we do it a lot of the times is because we don't have great portrait time beforehand. So for example, in this wedding, it was super overcast the whole day. They had to move the ceremony inside. We didn't have a lot of portrait time because it was raining all day. And we just wanted to give this couple a little something extra as far as portrait goes. 2 years ago, we shot a wedding during a hurricane. So we got zero portrait time again. So at night, during the reception, we took them out and did just a really quick nighttime portrait in the rain at night, and it turned out pretty cool. So a lot of the times we are doing night portraits when we don't get a lot of time during the day for portraits, whether it's raining or it's too rushed or we just want a little something extra. Another reason is if there's an amazing venue and it's a clear night and you can see the stars and I know it's just going to be an incredible portrait, I'll ask them to do night portraits then too, especially if I've never been to that venue and I want to get in with the venue. Night portraits are something that not everyone does, so it's something a little bit unique that I can offer and show the venue and potential clients. So how do you do night portraits? Before I get into where to put the flashes, I'm going to tell you kind of how to set the scene almost. So when I do night portraits, I set up everything before the bride and groom get out there. Because I've been out before and the flash's battery has died and I've had to switch batteries. I've had flashes fall off the light stands. I've had things like that happen and I don't want to waste their time. They are dancing, they're partying with their friends. I don't want to keep them outside for 20 minutes. I want to do it really quick. I want them to have an amazing experience with us. So I set everything up beforehand. So I'll go outside, I'll find where I want to do the portraits. I typically look for a place that is really, really, really dark if I'm trying to get the stars, or if I want the building or venue, I obviously set up in front of the building or venue. The first thing I do is I get my camera obviously in manual mode and I expose for the ambient light, or the light that is there already without me adding anything. So this is just for the building. So in this picture, I exposed, this is what I want the building and the sky to look like, and I'm gonna add light from here. So I have my camera set up and we're good to go as far as the ambient light. So now I'm going to start adding lights one at a time. It's super important that you don't turn all your flashes on at once and try and set them up because you don't know exactly where the light is coming from or what is off. So that's why you set them up one at a time. So I put one flash here behind everybody. I typically do that just to add a little bit of glow around them. It adds dimension to the photo and makes it not as flat. So I normally put one flash behind them on a light stand or on a banister or a railing. And then I'll typically use another flash or two flashes to light them from the front. I'll have a main flash. If I'm using two, I'll have a main flash and then I'll have a fill flash. So one that is brighter than the other and the other one that is less powerful is just used to fill in shadows. So at this point I have one flash behind the subject. which there's no subject yet. It's just an empty field. So I have one flash behind and either one or two in front. So I'll leave my camera and my flashes, I'll leave it all outside, which is probably not very smart because I'm leaving thousands of dollars outside. But I'll go inside and I'll grab a couple that is not the bride and groom. So maybe someone from the wedding party, maybe a couple that I know is engaged and I'd really love to shoot their wedding. So I'll just grab a couple and I'll ask them to come outside with me, ask them if they're interested in night portraits, and I'll have them be my test subjects so that when my bride and groom come out, everything is ready to go and they have a great experience. So again, I do this in stages. I don't turn them all on at once. So I'll put them where I want them. I'll take a picture with no flash just to make sure my ambient light is still right, make sure everything looks okay. Then I'll turn on my rear flash. And this is pretty low power most of the time because if it's too bright, it's a giant halo around them and it kind of makes them look like a superhero, which is not normally the effect I want. So I'll turn the rear flash on and I'll get it right. And at this point, you're not going to be able to see their faces really because you're just lighting their back. So I have the rear flash all set up and then I'll turn on the main flash and I'll get that to where I want it. And this is typically a little bit brighter than the rear flash. And then if I'm using a third flash for fill, I'll turn that on and that's typically lower than both of them. So I just do it one at a time. I set it up in stages so I know exactly what's going on, where my light is, how it's behaving. And then I just do portraits like normal. I have the couples look at each other. Typically, it's more of a dramatic portrait. So the guy will bend back the girl a little bit, make it a little dramatic and romantic. A lot of the times, if I have my rear flash on a light stand, I will have to edit that out in Photoshop so that you don't see the black light stand just chilling between them. And people ask me all the time what modifiers I use. So fun fact is that modifiers, the bigger the light source, the softer and more natural the light. So the bigger the modifier, the softer and most of the time the more natural the light looks. But if you've ever tried to shoot with a light box or softbox or umbrella or anything outside, you know it gets blown over in like 2 seconds. So unless you have someone to hold your light stand with your modifier on it, I just shoot with a bare flash, which is not the most natural looking light. But then again, nighttime portraits aren't very natural looking anyway. But I just use bare flashes just for convenience sake. I realize that modifiers would make my portraits probably look a little bit softer and more natural. But in the reality is I'm outside and I'm normally by myself shooting night portraits and Sarah's normally covering the reception and I can't hold them. So I just shoot with the bare flash and it comes out great. If you want to do a picture with the sparklers, that setup is a little bit different because you are having to drag your shutter for a couple seconds to get the blur of the sparklers, and then you're having to flash to freeze the subjects. It can be done a whole bunch of different ways. It depends on the ambient light. If the ambient light is too bright, you're not really going to be able to do it without Photoshop because you'll see the couple and they'll be blurry. So I'm not going to explain how to do the sparkler picture in this video because it can be complicated depending on the lighting situation you're in. If that is something you guys want to know, how to take the picture with the twirly sparklers, let me know. I might make a second video just talking about that. If you want to know what flashes to buy, I always recommend the Yongnuo flashes. They're from China. They're awesome. I have 12 of them. I've broken one of them. I've had 3 Nikon flashes and I've broken 2. So my track record with Nikon flashes is not great. I have broken 2 out of 3 and they're like $300 where my Yongnuos are like $60. So I'll put a link to those in the description. But the cool thing about these Yongnuo flashes is they work with every brand of camera. Because they're a full manual flash, that means that there's no extra contacts here on the bottom. They're not Nikon or Canon or Sony specific. They work with everything because they're a full manual flash. They're cheap. They have the transmitter built in so that I can use this flash to control all my other flashes. And it's just super simple and super cheap. So I use 4 of them, Sarah uses 4 of them, and then we each have 1 on top of our camera. So that's 8, 9, 10, and then I have 2 extra. I don't know why. I don't know how I ended up with 2 extra, but I have 2 extra. So I have 12. I'll put a link to this. If you don't have off-camera wireless flashes, this is definitely what I recommend. If you want a video on how to use these flashes or any other flashes, let me know. I might make a tutorial just on how to use the flashes, what different modes to set on, how to turn off the really annoying beep, because you definitely don't want your flashes beeping every time you take a picture, and things like that. So that's how to take night portraits. If you want me to create a video on anything else, dive in a little bit more specifically on anything, let me know. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure and follow us on social media through this wedding season and see behind the scenes of how we do things and why. Thank you.